Thanks everyone for joining today's session. In this session, we have Yuvraj Mehta, who is the Senior Product Manager in the EC2 Windows Modernization team, as well as Aditya Sharma, who is the Global Windows Modernization Go-to-Market Strategy Lead at AWS. Aditya and Yuvraj are going to talk about modernizing Microsoft workloads on AWS. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Yuvraj.
Great. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. I'm going to go through some of the high-level concepts with regards to Windows modernization and introduce some of the programs, toolings, and the concepts that you should be aware of as you embark on your journey for Windows modernization. So first, let's cover what exactly is modernization. At a high level, we define modernization as the process journey of progressively transforming your existing application and infrastructure to more higher value cloud native services. Basically taking away the undifferentiated heavy lifting that customers do today to bring them much closer to their businesses and ultimately bring more value to their customers. Here at AWS, we like to think of modernization as a journey that includes enterprise compute, infrastructure, architecture patterns, people, and process as well. And it's an operations and governance paradigm shift, right? And this shift, the main goal of this shift is for maximum resiliency and efficiency, so your business can innovate faster. But when we focus on governance, governance at scale means as you modernize, you need to build automation. This will allow you to scale your organization exponentially and basically, as we call it, take advantage of the cloud economics. There is an upfront investment that you have to do, but it will pay off as you scale your workloads and your people. So let's double click into that. So what are we hearing from customers? Customers ask us, why should they modernize, right? What are the benefits of modernization? How should they modernize their workload, right? And will modernization help them dynamically scale their application? Can they lower their application, operating cost or database TCO cost, right? So these are all the questions that come up. And so we attempt to answer these questions. But with these questions, we also recognize that there's some key challenges that IT organizations are facing. Applications are ultimately the foundation that enable companies to run their business, right? Because of digital transformation, IT decision makers are expecting their application portfolio to grow by 50%, especially in the next 2 years as businesses need new applications. And as all of us have seen and experienced as well, the effects of the pandemic over the past 2 years, there has been a rush towards digital transformation. Right? I've heard quotes from technology leaders that we have accelerated the 10-year journey to digital transformation into a 2-year journey. Okay, and this journey is continuing, and businesses are evolving their applications, not just to innovate, but to reduce their licensing costs, to have the ability to scale much faster, to deal with technical debt, to remove technical debt, so that there's no friction points as their businesses grow. And also, to ensure that their applications are secure as these applications get moved to the cloud. Okay. In order to address these challenges, right, one of the key what AWS has come up with is the 7 R's, as we like to call them, of modernization. Right. Over here in this webinar, we're going to talk about mainly the 3 R's of rehost, replatform, rehost, replatform, and refactor. Okay, So let's take a deeper dive into a modernization example with on-prem Windows application. Okay. First, in terms of rehost, is moving the infrastructure from on-premise to a cloud infrastructure. Right? This is often referred to as lift and shift. It is simply migrating an existing application and database to a cloud server instance. There's no need for code changes, and the customer manages the instance configuration, software, images, right? So you have full control over your application, over what type of instance it's running, right? But it's mainly taking the application that's potentially running in your data center or some colo facility and moving it to the cloud. Once you are in a cloud environment, the next transformation that we see customers doing is around re-platforming the application and database into a more automated and managed environment. Okay, from an application perspective, that largely means these days is moving from virtual machines to containers. Okay? Containerizing an application is a crucial first step in adopting what ultimately will be a more modern application architecture. Containerizing helps you develop, maintain, and deploy applications much faster and improves portability. Okay? So you can take that application, deploy it on any service within AWS. AWS has tools like App2Container to help automate the process of containerizing legacy applications. On the database side, moving from a self-service model to a managed database service like, let's say, RDS for SQL Server, completely eliminates the need to do activities such as provisioning, patching, and backups. So ultimately freeing up your resources for more value-added activities. The third area of transformation is to move from a commercial software licensing to open source. Oftentimes, these commercial licensing fees can add up, right, to a significant cost of up to 20 to 50% on top of an equivalent open source option. Okay? So refactoring your applications and databases to take advantage of open source can help you lower cost, improve performance, and gain access to the latest innovation. So with that being said, Microsoft modernization specifically is any transformation that removes Windows Server or SQL Server from the architecture of the application and replaces it with AWS open source or cloud native technologies. For apps, as you know, there are a range of options available for you to modernize. I'll refer to these options as modernization pathways. Okay, so there are multiple pathways you can take. So depending upon what the application's use case is, where it's used, and what business purpose it serves, you can pick and choose the pathway that best fits your need. For customers with a large application estate, it's unlikely that each app follows the same modernization pathway. Our strategy at AWS for Microsoft modernization is grounded in ensuring that we serve our customers no matter the approach that they take. Moving databases to the cloud reduces operational costs and frees up your team to add more value during their day. Rather than spending their time patching, securing, and scaling databases, your team can focus on innovating. Okay. Other benefits for database modernization: resources can be spun up at a click of a button from a console. No capital expenditure and lower operating costs. Flexibility to scale down or switch off resources with serverless architecture, and confidence that the service is reliable with uptime SLAs. And lastly, at the infrastructure level, modernization can also mean moving your Active Directory to a managed offering. With Managed AD in AWS or using Amazon License Manager to simplify your license management. No matter the pathway that you choose for Microsoft modernization, AWS has you covered. Now, let's go into how what tooling and programs AWS makes available in order to help you with Microsoft modernization. We view modernization in 3 core phases. The first phase being assess, moving to mobilize, and lastly, to modernize. The assess phase is the beginning of your journey, right? It sets the foundation for a well-planned and well-executed modernization project. After the assess phase, you progress, as I mentioned, to the mobilize phase. This builds the capabilities that you and your organization needs to operate a modernized solution in the cloud. The focus is on developing a landing zone, okay, and building that operational muscle with cloud skills and a strong project plan, and build a compelling business case for modernization. The mobilize phase prepares you for the next phase, which is modernize phase, where you are actually executing large-scale modernization and cloud operations. After completing the mobilize phase, modernization work can proceed rapidly and efficiently. Each successive completed modernization establishes a full-scale cloud operating model for you. There's several AWS tools and services that are available for customers to accelerate the modernization stage as well. So we will discuss these in the next few slides. AWS has helped enterprises in every industry across the globe migrate to the cloud and modernize on AWS, and in doing so have built and honed the tools, services, and partnerships to make your workload renovation, your workload modernization projects successful. In 2015, AWS set up a professional services migration services practice, and then expanded that same practice to a global center of excellence in 2016. We provide a comprehensive set of solutions and guidance to help customers modernize their workloads. We've established a migration services engineering team in 2016 and now have hundreds of engineers building tools to simplify the art of migration and modernization using AWS Migration Hub. And we introduced programs like Migration Acceleration Program, or MAP for short, to accompany best practices and tools with economic incentives for customers and partners. We continually leverage data from projects and from real life customer experiences to draw new insights and pass them on to you. Okay. Microsoft modernization and what programs that we can have. AWS has created a number of offerings to support your modernization journey. Whether you would benefit from expert guidance through partners or ProServe, or you need support jumpstarting your team, right? Sometimes skills are just not easy to find, right? And we definitely recognize that. To putting together a business case, a technical justification, or even a plan of action. Or if you're looking to offset some project cost, we're here to help you. Okay? AWS Professional Services provides a specialized expertise, tailored offering to accelerate migration and modernization of enterprise and ISV platforms off of Microsoft technologies and onto native AWS. Whether you're an SMB customer making decisions to move to the cloud, or whether go to AWS, they want to learn about how from our partners. In addition, partners help SMBs by addressing them in their native language and being geographically close. So who are some of the competency partners? These competency partners you can reach out to them and find them on our APN network that have successfully modernized their customers' Microsoft workloads and eliminated the Microsoft licensing cost. Now let's talk about some of the application modernization tooling that we have made available for customers. And I'll start from the left to the right. So we start from the left. The first thing that most customers need is, well, what is the modernization pathway that they should pick for the particular application? And so late last year, we launched actually AWS Migration Hub Strategy Recommendation. So it's a central tool that you can use across all phases of migration and modernization. Okay? This assesses your portfolio of application and provides recommendations on the modernization pathway. So once you know which pathway to pick, then you can go start your modernization journey by either porting the application or containerizing the application. So for example, for porting, we provide porting assistance for .NET, which accelerates your transition from .NET Framework to .NET Core to minimize the manual effort required there. This will basically allow you to run an existing .NET Framework application over to .NET Core so that you can run it on a Linux operating system. Next, AWS also provides AWS App-to-Container. We recognize that not every application is ready to get refactored and moved to .NET Core. And sometimes customers don't have access to the source code for the application, and that's more specifically true for applications that you have acquired from an ISV vendor or a COTS vendor. And so that's where AWS App-to-Container comes in, where you can take an existing application running on a Windows or even a Java or even a Linux server and containerize it directly without making any modification to the underlying code or the architecture of the application. The containerization process gives you additional resiliency and portability for that application. Once you have moved that application to a container, you can now plan out the further steps in terms of modernization for that application. And lastly, late last year, we actually announced support for AWS Microservice Extractor for .NET. This reduces the effort considerably to transform your monolithic application into a microservices architecture. In terms of database modernization, we offer considerable amount of tooling for everybody. Okay? The first, starting from the left to the right, we offer AWS Data Migration Service, or DMS for short. It helps you migrate databases to AWS quickly and securely. The source database remains fully operational during the migration, minimizing downtime to applications that rely on that database. The AWS Database Migration Service can migrate your data to and from the most widely used commercial and open source databases. Next up, we have AWS Schema Conversion, or SCT for short. It makes heterogeneous database migrations predictable by automatically converting the source database schema and a majority of the database code objects, including views, stored procedures, and functions, to a format compatible with the target database. Customers can convert from a relational OLTP schema or any supported database, data warehouse or lab schema to Amazon RDS. For example, Amazon Aurora MySQL or Amazon Aurora PostgreSQL, among others. Replatforming Assistant. The Windows to Linux Replatforming Assistant from Microsoft SQL Server Database Service is a scripting tool. It helps you move existing Microsoft SQL Server workloads from a Windows to a Linux operating system. You can use the Replatforming Assistant with any Windows Server virtual machine hosted in the cloud or with an on-premise environment running Microsoft SQL Server 2008 or later. Okay. Lastly, we announced to much fanfare Babelfish for Amazon Aurora to run SQL Server applications on PostgreSQL with little to no code changes. This Babelfish allows you to keep your existing queries. It's a translation layer that enables Aurora PostgreSQL to understand Microsoft SQL Server's proprietary T-SQL. You can run T-SQL code side by side with new open source functionality and continue developing with familiar tools. And lastly, it lowers risk of a complete migration faster, saving you months to years of work. Now, we have Aditi on the call here as part of this webinar, and we want to share what we're seeing in the field from a modernization perspective. Aditi, are you there, Aditi?
Yep, I am. Hi, Yuvraj. Hi, everyone.
Hey, Aditi. So Aditi, can you tell us a little bit what we're seeing in the field from a modernization perspective, and are our customers ready?
Yes, absolutely, Yuvraj. In fact, we're seeing an increasing number of customers that are moving from Windows and SQL and modernizing their applications on open source technologies or AWS cloud native technologies, right? Like you mentioned, many of our customers are at different points in their cloud journey. They have a huge variety of business drivers behind their journey. Like you mentioned, they could be TCO reduction. There could be an increase in innovation velocity and agility that they want. They could even be trying to capture larger market segments and so on, right? So again, you know, they're across a variety of industries and geographies, but all of these customers choose different pathways for modernization. But what they have in common is that they've all achieved their business outcomes by modernizing on AWS. So we're definitely seeing that as a trend in the market.
That is great to hear. So can you tell us of some recent success stories where customers were able to achieve their business objectives via modernization?
Yes, actually, if you move to the next slide, Yuvraj, I can talk about a very recent story with DraftKings where we helped them modernize their .NET legacy applications, right? And it's a really good story for a variety of different reasons. It's a story of how modernization on AWS enabled DraftKings to go through a merger and meet their growing customer demand all during a global pandemic. Right. So as you may know, DraftKings, it's an American daily fantasy sports contest and betting operator. And when they merged with SB Tech back in 2020, they really had to kind of think hard, right? They had to integrate their software, their platform, their people, and it required more than just code changes, right? To be able to turn this into an enterprise solution. That's when they decided to dive deep and embark on an intentional plan and a step-by-step approach to upgrade and modernize on AWS.
Great, that is an interesting use case. So tell us more about what modernization pathway did DraftKings adopt?
Yeah, and like you mentioned, Yuvraj, right, there's multiple pathways that the customers can choose depending on what their business objectives are, what their application portfolio looks like. I mean, they could choose database modernization, containerization, refactoring, breaking up monoliths. There's a variety of pathways to choose from, right? So in the case of DraftKings, they very quickly identified their starting point as the core technologies behind their microservices architecture, which was .NET Framework and Service Kit. So they decided very early on that they wanted all of their microservices to be converted into .NET Core. So this, of course, had a lot of technological benefits, like you talked about, Yuvraj, with DevOps efficiency and so on. But it also opened up a lot of other pathways for them, like moving to Linux, containerizing, moving on to Kubernetes. So yeah, they made a very deliberate decision early on to go that route.
And Aditi, tell us about what was the scale of this conversion to .NET Core, and how was DraftKings able to successfully modernize in such a short period of time?
Yeah, so they actually modernized hundreds of their applications, Yuvraj, from .NET Framework to .NET Core on AWS. And they were able to do this very quickly and efficiently because they followed a systematic approach. Like I said, once they had decided early on what approach and pathway they were going to follow, they started with seeking leadership support and buy-in, right? They built a strong business case. And once they had that top-down leadership support, many of the organizations or many of the teams across the organization wanted to know more about modernization benefits. They wanted to know how they could contribute to the project. So it started off on a very positive note. And then they also followed the agile methodology of breaking, large tasks into smaller chunks and managing their backlog. They wanted to keep their scope under control. More important than anything else, though, they actually worked towards creating automation that could do 90% of their work for converting the microservice to .NET Core. So that was really one of the key factors behind how they were able to achieve that level of scale in such a short period of time. So, I mean, it's fairly clear from this example that it's really imperative to build a clear path to modernization with a direction and a philosophy and a well thought out approach.
Wow, this is a great story, Aditi, of how one of our customers identified a business need to modernize, took on the challenge head on, and very quickly were able to achieve their desired business outcomes. So have you encountered any scenarios where the customer would like to modernize, but as we all know, there are significant blockers, right, that prevent them from embarking on their journey?
Oh yes, absolutely, you're right. So actually, it's more often than you think, right? Many of our customers want to modernize, and like you said, many of them don't know where to start or how to start. They may not be able to identify sort of the good candidates for modernization early on, or even if they do, they may just not have the right resources or the right skill set and the cloud native technologies. Sometimes they have everything, but they just don't have the bandwidth, right? They're simply too busy to spare any resources for modernization. That's where our ProServe and our huge competency partner ecosystem comes into play. And I'm happy to dive into a story. I see that you have the slide up with EPOS Now and how our partner Kloya helped them modernize on AWS.
Wow. Okay. So good to hear that we're able to work backwards from our customers, understand their needs, and team up with our partners to help them meet their objectives. So tell us more about the scenarios at EPOS Now and how we work with our partner Kloya to help them modernize.
Yes, so EPOS Now is a leading provider of cloud POS software for retail and hospitality, right? So we have about 30,000 restaurants and retail businesses that use EPOS Now as a point of sale software to run their business every day. They help the organizations manage sales, inventory, reporting, CRM, pretty much the whole spectrum, right? So although EPOS Now has been running Windows-based API environment on AWS for a long time, the company really needed more scalability to meet the increasing customer demand. However, they had a monolithic .NET Framework API that was running on EC2 Windows. So it was really slow to scale and challenging to manage because it wasn't built with modern tools designed for the cloud, right? That's where Kloya stepped in. So Kloya basically worked very closely with the EPOS Now team to move from .NET Framework to .NET Core, from Windows to Linux. At the same time, they actually helped EPOS Now decouple their API into a microservices architecture that now runs on Kubernetes clusters that are managed by Amazon EKS, right? So they deployed AWS Lambda along with Amazon API Gateway to enable easier creation and maintenance of their secure and scalable APIs. So as a result of all of this, EPOS Now can basically roll out software features now in a day instead of what it used to take them earlier, about 3 weeks. So that's a huge efficiency gain right there, right? And in addition, of course, they're able to scale more easily to accommodate international expansion. So all in all, Kloya really worked together and teamed up with EPOS now to completely revamp their architecture on AWS and really help them realize the benefit of cloud native technologies, truly.